let's talk about something that's a little bit more positive, which is the Libertarian Party takeover in America. And I wanted to talk about this because, one, I think it's interesting and I think it's very positive. And two, I am kind of hoping that UK politics tends to be downstream from US politics. So if there are positive changes in US politics, I kind of hope that they'll just end up coming around over to here. Because as it stands, I find all of the UK parties, or at least the only viable ones, to be pretty much useless.
I know you're a big Libertarian fan too.
Yes, I am.
So that hype.
It does. And for those unaware, I know that libertarianism has kind of got probably a bad rep in mainstream circles. There are two main brands of libertarianism, which is the mainstream one that's been around for a while now, which is what I would refer to as left libertarianism, where these people have taken the right to not be discriminated against as the ultimate right to be held up above all others. And then there's like old school libertarianism, which is more in line with the old right of America pre-World War II, which is anti-interventionist, anti-war, kind of isolationist, but mainly just like leave me alone sort of style politics, which is my style of politics, to be perfectly honest. But before we go any further, I'll just talk about this, which is a recent deep think from Carl that you should all check out, called How Elites Are Captured. And of course, this all relates to the idea that, mainly the people pushing society forwards are a organized minority of elites that share an ideological belief system. And so with the Libertarian Party, for instance, what we're going to see is that there has been a change in that organized minority elite in the party that will be hopefully pushing for positive change there and make them a more viable party. They are already like the third biggest party in the US, but when you're up against the Democrats and the Republicans, which are the entrenched parties, it's still kind of difficult. But hopefully they'll make some decent waves. So check out this article if you're interested in hearing Carl's take on how you can sort of switch critical race theory tactics around and capture elites for your own ideological purposes. Anyway, let's carry on. But before I go into the stuff regarding the Libertarian Party itself, I just wanted to draw some attention to some of the stuff that's going on with the two mainstream parties in the US on red flag laws regarding firearms. Are you aware of these?
I've heard of them before. What exactly are they? Just to refresh my memory.
Basically, it's if you think somebody is a danger to others, you can alert the authorities and they will be able to prevent them from being able to purchase new weapons or confiscate the weapons that they already have just in case.
The idea being you get rid of mentally unstable people.
Yes, but you can see immediately how that's going to be easily abused because obviously Uvalde, is that how you pronounce it? Sure. Probably. The Uvalde school shooting went on recently, and this has restarted the whole discussion on gun control, which is, in my eyes, should be reframed as the restriction of property rights because, guns are property just like everything else, and gun control is just an infringement on your property rights. And the Second Amendment being the right that defends all the other ones, so as you like to bring up. So, of course, this is being put through the Senate soon, and I just want to remind everybody that, sadly, as much as many of the more public-facing politicians in the Republican Party may bluster about it, they're still not really going to be there to defend your rights at the end of the day when it actually comes to this sort of stuff. So I'll just read a bit of this. The House of Representatives passed legislation that would allow US judges to seize firearms from someone deemed an imminent danger to themselves or others on Thursday. The federal Extreme Risk Protection Order Act passed on a vote of 224 to 202, with 5 Republicans breaking ranks and voting in favor of the bill. The bill will also allow judges to prevent individuals from purchasing firearms under the same circumstances. It allows family members and police officers to ask judges to impose the restrictions so long as they provide proof of danger. Judges can enforce either 14-day or 180-day ban on the possession or purchase of firearms. So this, I've covered before, is basically a slippery slope to just taking away all of your rights for self-defense altogether. We had incremental things over in the UK that I've covered, like the pistols bill and other such things and all throughout the 20th century we had more and more regulations come in until we've got it now where you're basically unable to defend yourself legally except in very exceptional circumstances, and even then you're still probably going to go to prison for it.
Sorry, I was laughing because I was just reading some of the chat that were like, this isn't going far enough. We need common sense bicycle control.
I agree. I mean, who knows what danger bicycles could pose in the future?
Old men breaking their arms.
I know, a terrible, terrible thing. Carry on. The legislation is yet to pass through the Senate, and the 5 Republicans who voted in favor of this bill are Representative Fred Upton, Representative Adam Kinzinger, Anthony Gonzalez, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Chris Jacobs. So there are people within the Republican Party who are going to be more than happy to just let this sort of stuff pass and not protect your rights. And when it's going to the Senate, there's already 10 Senate Republicans who are happy to back this bipartisan bill infringing your rights. So let's go to the next one. Bipartisan group of senators have announced a deal on framework legislation to address the recent surge in gun violence in the US. And I should have really put it in here, but I did recently look, I showed you earlier, a graph of mass shootings in the US. And they've really spiked up since maybe the early 2010s. And I looked also at the range of gun control legislation that's been put through in the US. And wouldn't you know, it's only since maybe the early 2000s that we've had this absolute spate of gun control regulation come through in the US. So it really shows that gun control absolutely works in every single time. It's not that, you know, having people armed maybe makes the bad guys with guns feel a little bit less secure about firing into a mass crowd because they know they'll get fired back at. No, it's take away the guns from all the good law-abiding people, and then things will just get better, I suppose. Maybe.
Just trust the state, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a sign on this school that says this is a no-gun zone. Any law-abiding criminal is going to see that and go, "Oop, best not. Best not." The bipartisan group was made of 20 senators, including 10 GOP lawmakers, many of which are strong supporters of gun rights and political allies of the powerful National Rifle Association. And if you're going to say that these people are going to support bills like this and say that they're strong supporters of gun rights, I'm just going to say X to doubt, mate. And with the support from these 10 GOP lawmakers, the legislation likely has the votes to overcome the 60-vote threshold to avoid a filibuster in the Senate. So this might actually pass. And of course, you've got people like Mitt Romney supporting this sort of stuff, like the old school milquetoast rhinos who don't have any real beliefs on anything except however they can progress their careers.
Still makes me laugh that he could have been president.
I would have.
I mean, what would have happened? You remember him marching with BLM?
Yeah. Do you remember as well that at the same time, like, Ron Paul was trying to become the nominee for presidential candidate for the Republican Party, and they just went straight past him, and they're like, no, Romney's our guy. You know, the incredibly popular Ron Paul who wanted to abolish income tax and all this sort of stuff and protect people's rights. No, we need Mitt Romney.
I mean, it's laughable looking back.
It is terrible. And you've got people on Twitter trying to explain how red flag laws work with this handy-dandy, friendly little diagram. If you don't mind clicking on it, just because I want to read it out. So this is Jane. Jane's social media contact, Randy, posts photos of guns and cryptic messages. This is an immediate warning sign in her head that he's about to go off and murder people for some reason. Jane calls the police to report the posts, to report thought crimes, essentially. The police petition in court to temporarily remove Randy's guns. They provide evidence that Randy's a danger to himself and others, and then the court agrees to temporarily remove Randy's weapons. And this is supposed to be telling you the benefits of red flag laws, because apparently this will somehow prevent mass shootings because Randy likes his guns and probably S-posts on Twitter. And Jane is like, oh my God, he's a terrorist. And people have responded to this with how red flag laws actually work. With this is Jane. She's a radical progressive. Jane works at the same company as Randy, who posts content of his scary guns and target shooting. She gets triggered and knows that he recently argued with his boss, so she calls the cops. The leftist-controlled police department is forced to ask courts to seize Randy's guns, and you know that they're all leftist-controlled for the most part. That's what we've got over here. That's what you've got over there. And then Randy is unable to defend himself in court or counter the evidence, because how are you supposed to prove a negative of prove to me you're not a terrorist? Just do it. Just find the evidence somewhere in your pockets.
I'm not a terrorist is exactly what a terrorist would say, idiot.
Yeah, obviously. Why would we believe that? That's just what all the other terrorists said before we took their guns away from them. And then an anti-Second Amendment judge infringes on Randy's Second Amendment rights, which it all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This looks exactly...
I can imagine that happening many a time.
Yes, and it has happened many a time already, I would imagine. And I just want to throw out here the Lysander Spooner gun argument in terms of rights. Lysander Spooner was an anarchist in the 18th century who actually argued against the Constitution for giving the federal government far too much wiggle room to be able to expand itself, and sadly, it seems he was proven right with time as far as it goes, because as the Constitution stops the federal government from expanding itself into every aspect of your day-to-day lives, did George Bush think, oh, is this constitutional when he passed the Patriot Act? No, it got through anyway. So it's a useless piece of paper, basically. At the end of the day,
Could you imagine that debate?
Yeah.
in the Oval Office. Is this constitutional?
what constitutional? What? Why do we care about that? And his argument was very simple. To ban guns because of criminals who use them is to tell the law-abiding that their rights and liberties depend not on their own conduct, but on the conduct of the guilty and lawless. That's like saying you can't have your own private property because other people steal stuff. I mean, that's the argument. And there are plenty of people within the GOP who are more than happy to go along with this sort of stuff. And even Trump himself, I looked into it, was not great with gun control. Under his administration, they banned bump stocks, which are those things that allow you to turn, like a single-fire rounds into something that can turn more automatic.
I'll be honest, I'm pro-gun, but I never actually understood the reason for those existing, because they just seemed like...
Why not?
They seemed like they were useful in one aspect, which is to be really dumb at the range and shoot a lot, but then obviously useful in mass shootings, as in like, how do I make guns shoot more into crowd? So it never seemed like a real benefit. Because if you wanted to overthrow the government, I don't feel like you'd be being done with a bump stock.
Yeah, but still, why not? Why ban it?
Because the guns are for overthrowing the government, and I would have thought that that's not even going to help us.
Well, being able to make yourself more dangerous to the government with something like a bump stock...
I don't think that's more dangerous. I think that's just retarded, because like, the accuracy's ruined.
You can question the logic of it, but still, I don't think the government has the right to say you just can't have that altogether. And also, Trump actually expanded red flag laws and other such things. Once again,
aspect, yeah.
the logic of it may be questionable for bump stocks. I mean, I'm not an American, so I've never been to a gun range, sadly, so I don't know the actual benefits as an American might describe them to me. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that's your property. You can do what you want. If I decided to turn my house into a giant water slide, you might say to me, is that really a great idea? But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's my house. I can do what I want with it.
Sure, you can do what you want with your house.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this is a discussion of property rights, and property rights are the most fundamental rights governing everything else. You know, the Second Amendment is the right to have property, which is a firearm. So there you go. But that's just what I wanted to talk about regarding the Republicans and gun rights and other such things right now. And let's move over to the Libertarian Party, which has been recently taken over at the end of May by the Mises caucus, who are the ones who I would describe as the right-wing libertarian types. Obviously, they're trying to be a bit more gentle with their messaging, but I know for a fact that these are the sorts of people who are much more the Rothbardian and Hopper style libertarians who are full on for property rights, they're full on for freedom of association and other such things. So I'll just talk about this. Reason have tried to sort of play up some of the more edgy aspects of them, because I believe Reason are more in terms of like the left libertarian types, but they'd still give a decent enough overview, because the Libertarian Party as it stood in America was basically just another leftist organization. You know, they put forward all of the BLM, wait for Juneteenth and all this sort of stuff, and they were putting forward like pride flag rights and other such things, whereas these guys are just like, no, throw away all the leftist BS and let's just focus on a relatively radical position to try and inspire people. Because at the end of the day, if you're a party that's trying to be an alternative and you're basically just a middle ground party between the two parties that people are already attached to emotionally and in terms of their voting habits, what are you offering as an alternative? If the whole discussion is Republicans want to take tax away by, want to reduce tax by 5%, Democrats want to reduce it by 2.5%, and you're like, hey, guys, why not 6%? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? The only way to really provide an alternative is to do a Ron Paul and say like, well, let's just abolish income tax altogether. I want to get rid of the IRS and then replace it with nothing, as he said.
I mean, I am sympathetic to all these economic aims of the libertarians, but I must admit that's not really the thing that burns me off from them, at least in the United States in the past. Of course, the BLM stuff and all that is relevant.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You've had cringe libertarians
yeah, the
for a
cringe
long
libertarian
time.
compilations are real and, there for a reason. So is that being destroyed?
By the looks of it, yes. So I'll go through some of this. So dominating the convention body by more than 2/3, the Mises Caucus claims to offer an edgier, more libertarian organization. Foes accuse it of right-wing deviationism and racism. Oh dear. A 4-year battle.
So it sounds like they've done nothing wrong.
Yes, they are very based. 4-year battle for the control of the Libertarian Party ended Saturday in Reno with a victory for the Mises Caucus at the party's national convention. The faction's chosen candidate for the chair of the party's national committee, Angela McArdle, won on the first round of balloting with 692 votes, more than 69% of the voting delegates. McArdle's first tweet after winning she was mocking the Libertarian Party's recent past, quote tweeting a March 2020 post that mentioned social distancing. Very libertarian, supporting lockdowns, exactly. And she told the convention on Friday she would not allow the party to humiliate ourselves and alienate everyone when faced with the next COVID-style crisis. While McArdle was the Mises Caucus candidate, the behind-the-scenes mastermind of its victory was caucus founder and leader Michael Hayes. His disapproval of William Weld, Gary Johnson's running mate in 2016, I think that was the Libertarian candidate in 2016, was the initial inspiration for the caucus's launch. He found Weld painfully lacking in orthodoxy for the Libertarians, especially when it came to issues such as war and gun regulations. The caucus's official platform is Plumline Libertarian, but says its foes say that too many Mises Caucus members and fans downplay Libertarian positions that might offend the right, are intentionally obnoxious and bullying, and are often racist. For example, the New Hampshire Libertarian Party, a powerful vector of Mises Caucus messaging, tweeted on Martin Luther King Day that America isn't in debt to black people. If anything, it's the other way around. And the tweet was later deleted. So you want to talk about a radical alternative to what the Republicans and Democrats are putting forward? Boom!
Oh, God. I've seen a meme version of that where there's like an Atlantic article talking about reparations. Like, well, when will Black America ever be able to pay it back? That's very spicy.
It is very spicy, but isn't it nice to see a once cooked party being pretty based.
Doing interesting things.
Doing very interesting things.
Got my attention.
Yep. The sense that the caucus is soft on or actively encourages racism attracted the attention of the Southern Poverty Law Center. This is just another point in these guys' favor, as far as I'm concerned. The
Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't like them. Good.
Very interesting. Just before the convention had began, which aired the concerns in a story reported with cooperation from many Libertarian Party members upset with the Mises Caucus. And I did see a little documentary that Reason put together from the actual day that this went down, and you had like loads of members of the Libertarian Party who were like trans in support of gay rights, the little badges that said they, them, they had little rainbow badges and such on, and they were going, I can't believe that this has happened. We've let the bigots enter the party. Oh, this isn't what libertarianism is supposed to stand for at all. It's like, right, get out.
Get lost, leftist.
Yeah, get lost, leftist. I think the Democrats are more than happy to accept you. Hayes believes that the current rumoured front runner for a Mises Caucus approved presidential nominee in 2024 could be the comedian and podcaster Dave Smith. I don't know if you're aware of him. He's pretty based. He said they're being relatively coy on immigration and abortion rights and such like that. But Dave Smith in the past has been interviewed and said that, you know, he doesn't think anybody has a right to intrude on property. And his idea for like an immigration scheme for America would be that you have to like vouch for someone, take them in, and financially vouch for them yourself. So basically all of those refugee welcome people, put your money where your mouth is what he's saying.
Also,
Other than that, stay out.
To be honest, I kind of like the mafia-esque aspect to immigration there. It's just like, you got to vouch for him.
Yeah, basically, you're just sort of like, well, I mean, if you're so eager to have them come in and take advantage of everything that we have over here that's great, well, put your money up. Otherwise, get out. You know, because they're not going to want to have income tax to be able to pay for all of these things. So it's like, well, okay, you've got to support him yourself. And if it turns out that, you know, you invite old Abdul in and Abdul has his way with certain people in your family, well, maybe you should have thought of that. But they say he's so well connected to the Joe Rogan world that legacy, respectable mainstream media will be meaningless for the party messaging moving forward. Good. Just ignore the mainstream media. Don't start a war with them like Trump did. Just ignore them. Just ignore that they exist because they're worthless. Their numbers are terrible, especially when you compare it to people like Joe Rogan. And Varner and Chastain, who were former donors to the party, see a distinctly right-wing culture and policy bent from the Mises faction. The caucus, whose whipping of its team proved very effective at the convention, wants to eliminate from the Libertarian Party's platform a statement that we condemn bigotry is irrational and repugnant, which is good because that's basically saying that we agree with the leftist agenda. They have actually taken that out now and have basically just replaced it with something saying we will protect the rights of everyone. We don't need to specify race. We don't need to condemn bigotry or anything like that. We just say we'll protect your rights.
We don't need leftist dog whistles.
Yeah, we don't need this ideology ruining everything.
Still can't go over that tweet. That's fucking hilarious.
I know. It's fantastic. I mean, well done to them. And once again, this party was formerly run by what Rothbard would have called the libertines, those who are like, oh, we need to protect people's rights to not be offended at anything. When he's like, no, that's not
right.
That's not a right. That's not a natural right. That's not even a right in the Constitution. Who cares about that? I tried to go on their website for the Mises Caucus, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's down or something. It just wasn't letting me get to it. I did get to this, though, which had some of the platform planks that they have here, where they talk about property rights as number one. Great, fantastic. The third plank was money, which they don't want the government involved in money at all. They want to get back to a hard money standard, reduce inflation, get away from the government being able to control the monetary funds, which is especially important now that we're starting to see the introduction of the idea of central bank digital currencies, which is just going to lead to social credit scores in the West, as far as I'm concerned. Decentralization of power, excellent. And they just want to, as well, plank 7 was just reject identity politics. Excellent. All sounds good to me. And you've got people like the online content creator for YouTube, Eric July, who mainly focuses on media, talking about this, but he's also an ANCAP, and he's very happy, as you can see here through this tweet, saying that, big shout out to them for getting the dysfunctional party back to publicly emphasizing actual libertarianism, because once again, the only thing that's going to convince people to move away from the two main parties is presenting a radical alternative. You can't just be a milquetoast middle ground party. If you want to get people's attention, you need to try and inspire people, And then all of a sudden, the soy libertines, just as a nice example of what the party was, interjects. Last time I checked, actual libertarianism isn't supporting groomers. Where does that come into it? I'm sorry, they don't support Democrats, sorry, and welcoming bigoted alt-right people in with open arms. Freedom of association, mate. I can associate with whoever I want, whether you like it or not, sorry. And here's another, and this person also has like pronouns in bio. And here's another example of what the party had turned into there. You can see the picture from the header image is a "Don't Tread on Me" rainbow flag.
Why? Okay.
Why? Because they wanted to present their allegiance to the leftist agenda, even though that's not what it's supposed to be. I'm not doing this to bully these people, as bullyable as they do appear to be, sad to say. I'm just pointing out these telltale signs, because this person also has, tweets supporting Juneteenth reparations and other such things. Oh my goodness, this person actually has something against these gun right laws, but I mean, that's basically the minimum that you can do for this sort of stuff, because I've seen this person tweeting in support of Juneteenth and all this sort of stuff. And, there is a libertarian argument for reparations, for instance, but the people who you'd be arguing in support of getting those reparations are all dead, because it would be the actual slaves who were subjugated by state laws allowing them to be slaves. So we can't just give it to their great-great-grandchildren, can we?
Well, you could, but it wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't make any sense, because these people, as the party may have hinted at with that tweet that I said about, are actually the beneficiaries of massive tax subsidies, massive amounts of affirmative action, and other such things, which have actually harmed their communities far more than anybody ever expected. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about there. If you're in America and you are tired of the two main parties, maybe give these guys a look in and think about, whether this is something that you want to get away from the main two-party system and see if you can get some actual radical change in your country.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this podcast on The Left Doesn't Understand Economics with Harry and Josh. If you want to follow what else Harry's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Harry Lotus Eater on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.